Hi there, my name is Lo. Welcome to my channel where I discuss everything between Hermes and grocery bags. Today we are going to talk about twillies, bandeaus, bag scarves, whatever you want to call them. I've been getting into them, and when I get into things, sometimes I go a little bit crazy, but I've been finding it really fun to dress up my bags, and I've also been enjoying taking it a little bit further than just wrapping a handle like you will most often see, I think, with twillies. So today I just wanted to give you some inspiration of how I use bag scarves to dress up my purses. And I'm also going to show you how I did it. This is once again one of those situations where I am absolutely no expert. I would just say have fun with it, make mistakes. If you do it right, never take the twilly off. I know I don't like to do it, so I'm going to demonstrate with another bag scarf. But yeah, just have fun with it. Let your imagination and your creativity go wild. Mix and match and just give your bags that little bit of extra personality. So because it's very crowded here, I'm just going to start off and show you what types of things I have done with bag scarves. And then later on, I'm going to give you a demonstration. Because it's already 5:15 and we have a very strict habit of eating at 6 in this house. Very Dutch. I might have to shoot this video in 2 parts, so if you suddenly see me showing up with different clothing or different nails, then you know why that happened. So without further ado, let's get started. And of course, I'm going to start with the most traditional thing you can probably do with a bag scarf, and it is wrapping it around a handle. So here I have my Givenchy Antigona in the mini size. This one has very, very structured handles, and those are perfect for wrapping a scarf around. One other more traditional or perhaps easy thing is to just tie a bow. For this one, I recommend to use a bit more of a structured scarf. So some scarves are very soft and in that sense also a bit floppy. This is an example of where I've used a scarf that is a bit more floppy, and then you see that the bow will sort of sag. So for bows, try to find something that has a bit more structure to it, unless you like this look, of course. So remaining on the topic of bows, you can also just make a completely separate bow. This is one that has been doubled up. Again, quite a structured scarf that I used here. And I think it ended up really, really pretty. I've connected it to one of these chains so that you can easily put it on the bag or take it off at will. And the end result is quite fun. You're not actually attaching the scarf to the bag. You're making it more of an independent bag charm, which I think is quite fun. Another way to give your bag more of this bag charm type of vibe is to do a braid. So here I've just braided it around the handle of my Tots de-styling bag. Initially I was thinking about wrapping this handle as well, but I thought it would look perhaps a bit odd with the construction of the handles and the fact that it can actually move up and down. So I decided to go with this, and I think it actually ended up quite fun. So when you do this braid at the bottom, you can end up with a bow, but if you want to go for somewhat of a more sleek effect, you can also keep on braiding it more towards the end and just have the endings stick out like this. So this is my new ABC Grace baguette bag. I will review this at a later time, but part of the reason that I grabbed this bag is also to show you no top handle is not necessarily a problem. A lot of bags are going to have hardware or leather or something else that you can end up braiding a scarf through. So over here I just went with braiding it through the buckle over here. So yeah, just to say, if you want to dress up your purse with a scarf, be creative, and knowing that you don't necessarily always have to wrap or bow everything. There's a lot of ways you can go with this. I also forgot to grab this bag. This is my Mulberry Mini Alexa, and over here on the side I also just did the braiding with the bow, and I attached it to this leather bit that is running across the bag. This was also one of those bags where I thought, well, putting a twilly on it might be cute. I'm not gonna do it on the handle because I think the handle is just way too beautiful to hide it away. There's D-rings on the back, which perhaps I could have also used, but they're kind of hidden away. So I figured I will just use this strap that is on the side. Why not? I also forgot to mention, you might not like how this looks, you might not like how any of this looks. That is perfectly fine. Of course, you can do whatever you like. I just like to get creative with these things. And sometimes I also end up taking them off because I don't think it looks any good. And then the last example I have here is to just sort of weave if you have a possibility to weave. This is my Demelier Lucin bag. As you can see, there's this long strap of leather woven through to, well, smaller pieces of leather, and it goes all the way down. So for this bag, I mean, I could have chosen to, for example, just tie a twilly up over here. It didn't look all that great to me. I was also a bit scared that having a twilly so close to these, well, leather attachment parts would annoy me and get in the way a little bit, which is why I ended up just deciding to wrap a scarf around this leather strap and then tie it off with a bow at the bottom. Personally, I also really like this color combination. You can see in both cases that I did decide to weave the scarf under the little leather straps that keep this long leather strap in place, just to make sure that everything is secure. Of course, do be mindful if you're going to put a scarf under these pieces of leather that they might stretch out a little bit, but I'm not all too concerned about that. That is all of the suggestions that I have to show you. And now we're gonna move on to the next part where I'm actually going to demonstrate you how it's done. Hi, so I am back. Unfortunately, I didn't make it in time for dinner to finish this video. And then even worse, I couldn't do it the same day. I got sick, so I couldn't do it the next weekend. So it's now 2 weeks later. I'm just gonna try and demonstrate to you how I do my bag scarves. My model of today will be the Marc Jacobs tote bag because it has a nice sturdy handle, and I'm going to use this bag scarf for demonstration purposes. This is a different color on the back side and is a relatively structured scarf, so be aware that if you're using a scarf that is looking the same on both sides, or one that is a bit more floppy, your results may vary. And again, it's perfectly fine, just have fun with it and experiment. So what I first wanted to show you is just wrapping a twilly around a handle. If you want to have the same amount of fabric on both sides and you're kind of peculiar about that as I am, the easiest way to make sure of that is basically to fold the scarf in half and start working from the center. So I'm gonna tie it around, and you may realize you will get into trouble a little bit working around the handle this way, but that shouldn't really matter all that much. Once you hit the bottom, just go around the back and tie it down. So the issue with the Marc Jacobs tote bag is because the handles are wider on the sides than on top. It can be a bit more challenging to tie. And then we do the other end. And as you can see, the fact that we started a little bit oddly here in the center, that is not really noticeable anymore. And go from the back. That is just an easy wrap around. One other thing that I actually haven't done on a bag, but that I do think is fun to show, is more of a braiding type of method to wrap around a strap. So this can work particularly well if you have a very long scarf or only a very short handle, or if you want to do just a half wrap around. So what we do here is, well, let's start from the top in this case to do a half wrap. So we cross, we go over, go underneath, go over, braid over, go underneath, and again over, over, underneath, and so forth. And we can continue and tie it down at the end, or if you have a little bit more fabric, you can do a little bow. So this is more loosely wrapped around the top handle, so it was also easier to slide down. Like I said, have to still try this on some bag, but I think it's actually kind of cute. And of course, this is once again one of those situations where you can just have fun with it and experiment. So I just did the same technique here on the side strap that we have on the Marc Jacobs tote bag. Basically turned it up a little bit, so I started off like this, but turn it up, so the ending is not looking super fancy here. But once again, just to give you a bit of inspiration of where else you could also just tie a bag scarf, if not on the handle of your bag. Alright, then I want to go to braiding next. So we're gonna do a bit more of a bag charm type of accessorizing. To do so, fold the scarf again in half. Then we're going to wrap it around the thing we wanted to dangle off from. If you want to end up with a bow, I would say go down approximately 1/3 of the scarf. If you just want to have some dangly bits without the bow, you can go down half, but let me go down just 1/3. That might not really seem like much, but making a bow takes a bit of fabric in that sense. So if you're really intimidated by braiding, you can just do a 3-strand braid where you just go over, and frankly that works fairly well. You're gonna have this little piece at the end. Make sure that this is still big enough, because we will need to pull the fabric of one of the other strands through. So once you've reached the end, pull through, and you can either leave it like this or you can make the bow, and I will show you in a bit how to tie a nicer bow, but for that again it's better to have a bit more fabric than what I have here. You put in the bow and you have a scarf dangling. So this technique is definitely the simplest. What I don't like about it is that there's always one strand that is thicker than the other strands, because it's a double layer of fabric. So what I prefer to do is to braid with 4 strands. So you open up the hole that you've created here, you insert and pull through. And then you do the same on the other side. You insert and pull through, insert, pull through. And by doing that, you're basically just weaving it together. Go over, insert, pull through, go over. And at some point in time, you're not gonna have much more hole left. In this case, the fabric already ties itself in, so you don't have to tie it through. Not my best work, but you get the idea. Okay, and then the last part, which is bows, and I kept this to the end because I think to do this pretty, it's perhaps the most difficult thing, and for me personally, this still requires quite some practice. So let's say we just want to do one like big bow on the front, right? The way that I was taught to tie my shoelaces is basically like this. Wrap it around and pull through. Very functional, but perhaps not the prettiest way to tie a bow. So there's another way to tie a bow, which I'm going to show you, but I haven't really found a good way of remembering it yet. So if there's a way to remember this like properly, please let me know. But what you basically do is run it over your finger, then run the other part sort of beneath, and then take the other part and pull it through. So you see, that's a better job than I did with the other technique, and it can still use a little bit of alteration, but what it kind of allows for is that at least these two parts look very tidy, opposed to when you would just do it the shoestring type of way. But I guess any method can technically work. Usually if you want to make it look pretty, make sure that these are opened up well. You can also tell, because this scarf has different colors on both sides, that does give it kind of a unusual effect, I would say. Of course, this will fully depend on your liking and the scarf that you're using, whether you want to, well, tie it like this. So if I want to do a bow on a small bag and I don't want to have these major flaps here, but also the fabric is a bit too much on the bottom, of course, what you can do is just put another knot over here, and that will minimize things a bit. And then over to the most complicated bow, I think, or at least it's not very complicated to make, but I think it's kind of complicated to do well. And that's also why I don't like to untie them. So that's also the bow I have on my Marc Jacobs tote bag. What we do here is, again, we sort of find the middle of the scarf, but we're not actually going to do all that much of the middle of the scarf. It's going to
be important to sort of keep into account. So what we're going to do is fold the fabric over, so we're gonna have a little end over here, then we're gonna do that a second time, and then we're gonna take this piece of fabric, and ideally you put it down now, but I can't for the video, but you basically squeeze the bow together so that you can wrap the fabric around, and you tie it down sort of behind-ish / below. Well, here you can immediately tell what the hard part is, namely that the fabric that I have remaining is kind of out of balance here. And you can correct that a little bit, because you can still pull everything out and correct everything. So if I pull this end over here, that will make the fabric shorter, but it's gonna require a bit of tugging here and there to make sure that everything balances out. So this is one that you just really need to practice once you have made a pretty bow that you don't want to untie anymore. You can just run something through the knot over here so you can tie it on a bag. I've just shifted it a little bit so I have more fabric on this tying end, so we can actually tie it in a knot first. Make sure to keep some space here on the back. I'm gonna go around the strap, pull through and pull it all together. Not perfect, but this is actually not a horrible job. And just to give another example, I did the same thing on this MCM Anna or Tracy bag over here, where I wrapped the bow around the handle and I ended up with way too much fabric on one end and way too little on the other end. But I just got kind of cheeky, and this bag has a front pocket, so I just decided to put the remaining fabric in the front pocket of this bag. And I think the result is actually quite cute, because having a large bow on the front of this bag might also be a bit much because it's a small bag, but just stuffing away the rest of the fabric inside of the bag actually makes it a bit smaller and more in proportion, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that is all that I have for you now in terms of using your creativity to get the most out of bag scarves. Of course, I also didn't think of all of this myself. I just watch a bunch of videos and now I often just see them on my feed on Pinterest, for example. But they usually do go pretty fast, so it can sometimes take me some more time to figure out what exactly is going on, and it also gives me more ideas about what else I can do with twillies. So that's it for now. Hope you found this fun, interesting, a little bit inspiring. Let me know down below in the comments if you're gonna do other things with your bag scarves now. Thanks for watching. Remember, there's a styling situation and a taste for everything, so don't judge. Wear whatever the bag you like. Until next time, or as we say in Dutch, doei!